What's cooking, good looking? Welcome to another edition of Breaking Badger News. I'm your host, as always, friendly neighborhood Simpsons Ken, and joining me on short notice, very grateful to have the Doge in charge, obviously, you know him, Brian Martinez. Brian, what's poppin', man?
You know, just getting ready for the Australia trip. Very excited. Also pretty stressed out by it. But more than that, I'm kind of chomping at the bit to talk about these stories that we got going on here.
Are you? Because I would have thought that, you know, with all the stress that you have on your hands already, that forcing you to do this would just add on unneeded stress. But okay, I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, I can always make a little bit of time to stick up for the Beatles, who are needlessly shat upon. So,
right.
And also a small dog in Manhattan.
Yes. Instead of talking about the Beatles story and having them being shat upon, let's talk about something getting pissed on. So, Brian, let me just put forward something to you, and I want you to finish this phrase for me, if you can, okay? Haters gonna hate, lovers gonna love. I don't even want none of the above.
Is that a song lyric?
Oh, come on. Are you serious? You never heard of that? Piss on You by Dave Chappelle?
Oh, that's right. It's been a long time. Yeah. Piss on You. Yeah, that's when he was doing the R. Kelly thing. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, we tried, ladies and gentlemen. We tried to bring some levity out of these really stupid stories, but I guess it worked out in a different way. So, obviously, you know, we're familiar with this famous statue that was erected in the 1980s in New York City's financial district called the Charging Bull. And the whole story behind it was that an artist wanted to demonstrate American resilience in the face of extreme adversity, and of course I'm talking about the 1980 stock market crash. However, recently that statue, along with another statue that was erected next to it, was causing some controversy. And back in March 8th of this year, a statue named Fearless Girl was erected to stare down this bull. And it was erected by a mutual fund named State Street Global Advisors as part of a gender equality campaign. Well, last week, a sculptor named Alex Gardiga installed a statue of a small dog pissing on the Fearless Girl. Literally calls it pissing dog, and he did this because he sees the Fearless Girl as, quote, corporate nonsense, and that it, quote, disrespects the original bull statue. Now, make of that what you will, but we're going to be talking about one particular woman's opinion. We are talking about Helena Fitzgerald of Rolling Stone, who says that the pissing dog is misogynistic.
Imagine my shock.
No. She admits she doesn't like Fearless Girl's feminism, admittedly, because she thinks that the statue suggests women's goals should be just to make more money and buy more stuff. Plus, quote, putting more women in more executive jobs addresses none of the numerous systemic inequalities under which women suffer. So, of course, you know, appealing to feminists and social justice warriors never pleases them. Another perfect example of this. Another quote that she offered, it merely elevates a few women into positions in which they have access to the tools of the oppressor, allowing them to exercise their tenuous freedom by denying it to others. Now, Gardiga responds to, you know, his criticisms, not necessarily by Helena, by others, by saying he is not anti-feminist, and his statue has nothing to do with feminism. However, of course, Helena doesn't buy it. Helena says that if Gardiga really isn't misogynistic, he would have erected a second statue to piss on the bull. Now, aside from that, there's no other reason given for why the dog is misogynistic or Gardiga by proxy. Brian, did you get the same impression that I did? Is she just crying foul because a little girl, a statue, is getting pissed on by a statue of a dog?
Yes, I think what's happening here is she's essentially interpreting the Fearless Girl in the way that the Fearless Girl was intended to be interpreted, which is as a symbol of female empowerment. Like that was the point, right? Because it was installed by this corporation. They had the Fearless Girl built. The point was to promote and essentially make a commentary about gender equality. And this is exactly how she took it, because to piss on the Fearless Girl is to piss on women. So yeah, I think she took it literally and then made the claim that it's not, but this is clearly what it is. So yeah, but now that doesn't mean that it is misogynistic. I think that it's important to know what I think is actually going on here. So it's important to know what I think is actually going on here. So let me see. I just want to make sure I got this right and I'm not misrepresenting this. The State Street Global Advisors put the Fearless Girl in place as part of a gender equality campaign. So this is the Fearless Girl represents a corporate interest. Like, they spent money to have this put in, which is interesting because the bull, which is the original sculpture, was done by an individual who essentially did guerrilla artwork. He basically built it, there without any knowledge, and he was an immigrant, and he did so because he believed in the American ideal, essentially, and the idea that, he wanted to see this country be successful because he is now a part of it. So this is actually really interesting because it's actually a very grassroots thing that he's doing on his own, the guy who originally did the first sculpture, which is the bull. Then the corporations put in a girl, and it's supposed to represent gender equality. But when they did that, it changed the context of the bull, which now did not mean what it used to mean because you add a girl to it and it alters the entire thing, which was the original sculptor's issue. Then after that, to prove that adding another sculpture changes the context of the original sculpture, the third sculptor, Gardega, adds the pissing dog, and that changes the girl. And that was actually the point he wanted to make. He wanted to make the point that adding a sculpture to an existing sculpture, depending on how, what the context is and like where you put it in relationship to it, it changes the context of the original sculpture. And that was what the corporation did when they added the little girl. So, and then when that was actually claimed, that claim was made that the sculpture is being changed by the original sculptor, he said, this is a problem because it changes my bull sculpture to something that it's not supposed to be. Then everybody denied it and they laughed at him. They said, no, this is totally what your sculpture meant, which I think is that this whole like postmodernist sort of, the way I see things is reality kind of thing. And then so his ideas were dismissed out of hand. So the third sculptor came to essentially prove the point of the original sculptor's argument by changing the context of the girl by adding the dog. And so by this woman saying it's misogynistic, she's actually playing right into the guy's hands. She's doing exactly what he said. So yes, he's right. He says this is not misogynistic because I'm making a point about how you are essentially translating what you see to match your worldview. And it's based on the fact that I have altered the context of your sculpture. So I think it's fucking legendary that the guy did that. And I'm glad he did, and he felt like he could do it, because I think it says a lot about people are just getting sick of all this feminist shit. I also find it really interesting, I don't know if you noticed this, but I find it really interesting that the bull sculpture and the dog sculpture were done by individuals that did not have corporate backing and giant investors and all this shit. And they were just two regular guys. But the feminist sculpture, the girl sculpture, that's the one that's backed by the establishment, essentially. I think that's the most interesting part.
So what you're saying is that Helena should be on the side of Gardega.
Yeah, because
that would make sense.
It's true. It's true. And also with her commentary about she thinks that it's a problem because putting more women in more executive jobs addresses none of the numerous systemic inequalities under which women suffer. Then it makes the assumption that girls' goals should just be to make more money and buy more stuff. Well, I mean, what do you got to say to, feminist icon Beyonce, who is basically, that's her whole thing, is making money off of her music and being essentially a rich celebrity. Like, is she not doing feminism right now? Because I think if you said that out loud, you might have some problems on Twitter with the Bayhive. I'm just saying. So
good luck ever going to a fan convention again. Yeah, it's unfortunate, because I think it was just less than a day after the statue was erected, it was actually removed.
Yeah.
So it's no longer there anymore. But, I do, of course, encourage, the 4chaners out there to take pictures of themselves standing in place of the dog and peeing on the Fearless Girl statue in defiance. Let's just see that actually happen, yeah.
Yeah, and don't forget that shortly after the Fearless Girl was first put in, some trolls or people superglued a "Make America Great Again" hat on her head and took pictures with her, and that also apparently changed the context when you think about it. So, right. So I mean, I think Fearless Girl is going to be, she's probably going to run into more problems. I mean, she if she was a living person, she'd probably be like Shia LaBeouf at this point.
All right, well, let's move on to something that might not inspire as much laughter as the previous story. So, to nobody's surprise, breaking news, Amanda Marcotte is a cunt.
Oh my
Just
shit.
to put it lightly.
What?
No
way.
Well, you know, of course, I will just say this very quickly. The opinions that I express as Max Derritt, Simpsons kin, do not reflect necessarily those for everybody else on Honey Badger Radio. But I will say this. I think she's a cunt. All she does is really just bring greater misery into the world than there already is. She doesn't do anything positive. And what better way to exemplify that than by attacking one of the most important, one of the greatest musical artists of all time, the Beatles. Now check this out. Amanda Marcotte thinks that the Beatles album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the album that gave us such magnificent songs, like With a Little Help from My Friends and A Day in the Life, she does not like it because it supposedly represented a switch between music for girls to music for men. Now she quotes McCall Gilmore of Rolling Stone with that statement. But also, oddly enough, the core arguments in her article are based entirely off of quotes from McCall Gilmore, with the rest of the article being Amanda Marcotte essentially nodding in agreement. So to quote a couple of things that she said in the article, and then we'll comment on them, Marcotte says, "It's no surprise then that the Beatles' shift toward a more respectable and artistic branding meant shedding their sex appeal. The Sgt. Pepper album cover features the Fab Four dressed in goofy-looking uniforms that couldn't be better suited to repel the female gaze. Beyond the title track and Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, there's very little on the record that makes a lady want to shake her hips on the dance floor." And moving on, she makes another quote. "Sgt. Pepper is a good pop record, don't get me wrong, but it's a record I resent because it helps cement this notion that music for girls is silly and music for men is artistically significant. It's a notion that is doubly appalling because history shows time and time again that girl tastes are the ones that are ahead of the curve." Yeah, okay. And then on top of this, just to cement how crazy she is, she says that the album Dare by Human League, the album that, of course, gave us the famous song, "Don't You Want Me, Baby," is a better album than the legendary Sgt. Pepper. Now, before I go into rage mode on this, Brian, I'll cede the floor to you.
All right. Well, I mean, I want to take first. Let me take a moment here to say that the reason why she talked about the Sgt. Pepper's album is because it did turn 50.
Right.
And this was worthy of mention because I don't know if you guys ever heard of this little band called the Beatles, but they were kind of well known. So it's worthwhile to point it out. Now, of course, I know that some of you are going to take issue with Max saying that they're one of the greatest bands in history, although I will co-sign on that. At the very least, it should be acknowledged, even if you're not a fan, that they were enormously huge. Okay. So, well, I have a few problems with this. just a couple. Well, there's some things. First off, there's some history that you should know. The Beatles started off, and they were essentially a boy pop band. That they weren't particularly great at their instruments, but they were four cute guys that, you know, played well enough, and they were able to harmonize, and essentially they were marketable by the corporation that ran them, okay? And it was good for what they did. And it doesn't mean that they didn't have passion about it, but they were also very young, and they got swept up in all this fame and shit early on. So there are, I guess, the way I see it, and maybe let me know, Max, if you agree with me on this. Yeah. There are multiple Beatles. Like, if somebody says, I like the Beatles, I ask them, which Beatles do you like? And I don't mean like they're different band members. I mean, what phase? You know, is it the pop phase from the very beginning where it was all like, she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. If you like that, or if it was when they got older and they started to experiment more, and that would be around the time, I would say it started in Revolver. Some people say it started in Rubber Soul. Yeah, Rubber Soul. So I would say, you know, in there somewhere, right? And that was when they tried to do different things. I mean, that's some of my favorite songs, like Eleanor Rigby, Nowhere Man, you know, Norwegian Wood, things like that. Then, For No One, which is a really good song too. And then they started to get a little bit into the psychedelic stuff around the time of the Lonely Hearts Club Band. That was when I think that's when they were going to go see they went to India and got high and shit. And that was after they met Bob Dylan, who was the guy who introduced them to weed. This is true. I mean, I'm not, this is, and then there was the psychedelic stage, and then they got really sophisticated with Abbey Road, and then you have like the post Beatles stage, and that's like, after that's, I want to say that's like Let It Be and the White Album and shit like that. So there are different phases. So basically what Amanda Marcotte is complaining about is something that was a natural evolution of the band for a few reasons. One, because they became more experienced and they wanted to try more things. Two, because they needed to remain relevant, as there were other bands that were coming up at the time that were trying new things, like the Beach Boys and Jimi Hendrix and, the Rolling Stones and so on.
Yardbirds, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they got older, so their tastes change. So this is like, it's a ridiculous thing to complain about, because what she's inferring is the Beatles changed because they didn't like the fact that women liked them, I guess. And then what they, and worse than that, she also infers that women don't have the sophistication, and I'm not even arguing that the Beatles' music is that sophisticated. Like, I'm just saying it's more so than when they were doing the really catchy stuff in the beginning of their career. But she's also making the argument that women's tastes are so simplistic that they can't actually enjoy the White Album and Let It Be and Abbey Road, that they Lonely Hearts Club, Sgt. Pepper. And that's just retarded, Amanda. That's retarded. Another thing is, just because young girls were attracted to the Beatles sexually, doesn't mean that they were ahead of the curve instead of musical tastes. It just means that they happened to stick around because they managed to actually make music later,
Yeah.
Okay, Max, I'm sorry. I know you're waiting to get in there. I got more thoughts, but I'm going to let you go for a bit.
Listen, Amanda. Look, Hey Jude, one of the greatest songs of all time.
I was hoping you were going to say that one, because I was like, that's one of my favorites, although there's other ones that I really love. But I was thinking about Hey Jude when you said, what's the greatest? I was like, yeah, that's a good one.
And that came out after Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And you, oh my God, every single time anybody played, like when I was in high school and I used to play that song on the guitar, every single girl, even ones that I didn't know, would just rush down the hall and just start singing, na, 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 na. And also whenever I'm like at a house party or something and there's a piano there and I start playing Let It Be, girls gather around me and just start singing, let it be, let it be, let it be. Okay, so
let it be.
Those songs came out after the Sgt. Pepper's album, okay? And women all over the world love them because they are legitimately great compositions. And to say that women are not sophisticated enough in the head to notice what good music is, aside from all that teeny bopper crap that came out in the early 1960s compared to the Beatles' later work, then you're an idiot. You're so collectivist and ideologically ridden. This is... I honestly think that after reading this article, at some point she's going to be mentally interred at some point, because I don't understand how anybody can be this stupid.
Yeah, no. I
look, okay, one other thing. Sorry, Brian. No, just okay. Whenever I go to a music store and I talk to somebody about the Beatles, or even any of my friends, all the guys, they will say that songs like In My Life, Eleanor Rigby, Yellow Submarine, A Hard Day's Night, what else? What else was on Rubber Soul and Revolver?
Okay. So Taxman?
Taxman, Yesterday, Day Tripper. Yeah. All those songs are as good, or in some respects, maybe even better than other songs that you can mention, like
Hard
maybe
Day's
Revolution.
Night.
Well, yeah, maybe not Hard Day's Night, but some of the other songs they did, like they're all so classic, and they all stand the test of time. Like you could still hear people nowadays singing songs like Yesterday, along with songs like Let It Be or Hey Jude. They're all equally good. And look, great artists that stand the test of time, evolve their approach to their sound over time. Otherwise, you just get people like Billy Idol that are still stuck in the 1980s, right? Look, the Beatles are great because they evolved and they took on new sounds. And Sgt. Pepper's was the first turning point for the Beatles.
Great,
and thank God they did it.
great musicians do that. Like, I wonder if there's going to come a time, if Amanda Marcotte is still alive and hasn't killed herself out of clearly what she suffers from, some kind of chronic depression. And I'm not making fun of people with depression. I'm making fun of Amanda Marcotte. And
Yes.
I wonder if the time will come in about 40 years or so with either her or her prodigy is complaining about how Prince's music changed over the years, because, you know, girls loved him when he was doing Purple Rain, and he sold out, or he started to appeal to men with his later albums when he started to essentially become more experimental because he wanted to remain relevant, or any other number of bands and acts that have done that, which is a lot. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I just think
David Bowie. Beck.
Yes, David Bowie.
Yeah.
Through a lot of, yes, Beck is another good example. Lots of shifts. The Gorillaz. So
Yes, even them, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's just Amanda Marcotte is complaining about something because she hasn't written anything in a while, and here we are talking about her. But I mean, to be honest, it's hard because I am a Beatles fan. I like the Beatles, and I think this is a shame. So it really is insulting to women. That's actually the thing that I find the most irritating.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Amanda Marcotte, just, you know, put out whatever drivel you want, but don't fuck with the Beatles, okay?
Yeah.
Just don't. You know what type... You should know what type of forest fire you're walking into when you do that. Just don't do it. So... That's all for today, ladies and gentlemen. In a couple hours, I'm going to watch Wonder Woman, which, from what I understand, is a great movie. It features a great female character and isn't trying to push any type of political agenda, at least from what I've been told. Mm-hmm. Brian,
I'm going tonight too to see Wonder Woman.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
I guess you have to right before you have to go off to Australia.
Either that or I have to wait till I get back. But by that time, you know, everybody will have talked about it, and I don't want to be that guy. So
yeah, I heard it's good, man. So anyways, that's it for us today, ladies and gentlemen. We'll keep you up to date with all the stories that we talked about. If any more new developments come out about it, let us know your thoughts down below, because the most important part of this particular show is not what us two idiots have to say. That's what you guys have to say. So make sure you leave your comments down below. Hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And until next week, have a lovely, lovely day.
Oh, and Amanda, if you're still really upset about what people celebrating Sgt. Pepper, don't forget, happiness is a warm gun.
Bang, shoo, shoo. Okay. Bye, guys. Shoot me.